Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever noticed how many highly capable 4x4s out there never see anything rougher than a gravel parking lot? Today, we're bridging the gap between simply owning a highly capable off-road machine and actually becoming a capable off-road driver. We see it all the time, right? Someone drives off the dealership lot in a brand new, trail-ready crossover, pickup, or SUV completely packed with cutting-edge four-wheel drive technology. But having the equipment is really only half the battle. So today, we're going to dive into the essential skills you need to take that vehicle off the pavement safely, confidently, and responsibly. Let's get into it.
First things first, we've got to dismantle this myth that four-wheel drive automatically makes you invincible. It's such a common misconception that just because your vehicle has an aggressive stance and a heavy-duty badge on the back, you can conquer any wilderness you point the steering wheel at. Well, actually, scratch that. True competence doesn't come from the machine alone. It comes from understanding your vehicle's unique capabilities, knowing how to read the terrain in front of you, managing your traction, and honestly, perhaps most importantly, knowing exactly when to swallow your pride and turn back.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by getting to know your vehicle. Then we'll cover reading the terrain, managing momentum and traction, choosing safe lines, safe off-road recovery, and finally, risk management and planning.
All right, Section 1. Know your off-road vehicle.
Before those tires ever leave the pavement, you absolutely must understand your specific drivetrain. Trust me, you do not want to be figuring out your dial settings while you're actively sinking into a mud pit. You need to know the distinction between these systems. For instance, all-wheel drive automatically manages power for slippery roads, but true four-wheel drive, that requires driver engagement. 4-high is your go-to for loose gravel or sand where you really need momentum. 4-low is basically your secret weapon for rack crawling because it multiplies your torque. Also, get to know your differentials. An open differential might leave you spinning one wheel helplessly, while limited slip or locking differentials literally force your wheels to turn together, pulling you out of the toughest spots. Get familiar with the whole shebang before you hit the dirt.
Beyond just the engine and drivetrain, your vehicle's physical shape dictates exactly where it can go. Knowing your ground clearance and these critical angles, approach, breakover, and departure, helps you visualize what obstacles you can safely pass over. The approach angle determines if your front bumper is going to smash into a hill before your tires even touch it. And hey, that's a mistake that costs thousands in bodywork. The departure angle is the exact same concept, just for the rear. And the breakover angle? That's the maximum steepness of a peak you can drive over without scraping the center of your undercarriage and getting high-centered, leaving all four wheels just dangling in the air like a turtle on a fence post.
Moving right along to Section 2, reading the trail terrain. When you arrive at the trailhead, the terrain is kind of like a giant puzzle you need to solve. Different surfaces demand completely different strategies. Driving in sand requires you to maintain momentum so you don't sink. Mud, that demands a steady throttle. If you hit the brakes in deep mud, you kill your forward motion and bog down instantly. Snow requires a low gear and really methodical, slow movements to prevent traction loss. And rock crawling is all about extreme slowness, protecting your undercarriage, and relying on spotters outside the vehicle. You just can't treat every trail surface the same way.
So how do we actually read the trail? Well, you have to look for visual cues. Never assume a puddle is just a puddle. Look, if you wouldn't wade into a murky mud pit on foot, please don't force your expensive rig to swim in it. Always stop, get out, and scout ahead. Grab a stick and probe the depth of the mud or water. Watch the water's speed. Fast-moving water often conceals a rocky bottom, while slow, stagnant water usually means deep, tire-swallowing mud. And for sure, always check for exit tracks. If you only see tire tracks going into a mud hole and literally none coming out, yeah, someone didn't make it.
Okay, Section 3. Managing momentum and traction.
A really crucial point here is this golden rule of off-roading, famously born from the legendary Camel Trophy events. As slowly as possible, as fast as necessary. I absolutely love this quote. It reminds us that real off-roading is calculated, deliberate, and controlled. It's not the chaotic, high-speed free-for-all you see in the movies. Speed is almost always your enemy off-road. Control is your best friend.
A total game changer for managing traction in soft terrain, like sand or snow, is your tire pressure. When you stop at the trailhead, deflating your tires slightly widens their footprint. This is often called flotation. Think of it like putting on snowshoes. You're floating over the terrain rather than digging a hole straight down. This wider contact patch gives you significantly more grip. Just remember, driving on underinflated tires on the pavement can destroy them. So you absolutely have to air back up to the proper highway PSI before you head home.
Once you're moving, Maintaining traction is all about finesse. If you start losing grip, spinning your tires wildly will only dig you deeper into a rut until your vehicle is resting entirely on its frame. Nobody wants that. Instead, you need a smooth, steady throttle and controlled momentum to just glide right through. Choose the right gear for the terrain. And remember, avoid hitting the brakes in the soft stuff because it instantly shifts your vehicle's weight and ruins the forward momentum that's keeping you afloat.
Up next is Section 4, choosing the safest line.
Picking a good line means actively visualizing where all 4 of your tires will be at any given moment. You want to straddle deep ruts rather than driving down inside them. Now, imagine approaching a massive boulder in your path. Your instinct is probably to try and squeeze around it, right? But counterintuitively, placing your tire directly on top of that boulder actually lifts your vulnerable differential up and out of harm's way. Trying to straddle a rock like that could result in a really nasty, trip-ending impact to your undercarriage.
When the line is blind from the driver's seat, or the terrain just gets highly technical, you need a spotter outside the vehicle. But here's the catch. Establish hand signals beforehand. Trust me on this one, screaming over a revving engine has ruined more off-road trips and probably more marriages than a flat tire ever could. Pre-agreed hand signals are vastly superior to yelling back and forth. Establish your communication before you reach the obstacle, and as the driver, trust your spotter's directions completely.
Which brings us to Section 5, Safe Off-Road Recovery. Look, everyone gets stuck eventually. It happens. The most important rule of getting stuck is to stop before things get worse. If you lose forward motion, immediately take your foot off the gas. Do not dig a grave for your truck. Instead, step out and systematically prepare for a solo recovery. Grab a shovel, clear the dirt or mud from around the tires and undercarriage, and firmly wedge your traction boards under the tires. Then, hop back in, apply a light, steady throttle, and allow the tires to grip those boards and drive you right out.
Now, if a solo recovery fails and you need a pull, pay close attention. You must only ever use rated, frame-mounted recovery points, like D-rings or heavy-duty hooks. Never, ever loop a recovery strap over a standard towing ball or some random suspension part. Under extreme tension, that tow ball can snap off and literally become a deadly, high-speed projectile flying straight through a windshield. Safety during recovery is absolutely non-negotiable.
Finally, Section 6, Risk Management and Planning. Off-roading is a privilege, guys, and being a steward of the trail is on all of us. Organizations like Tread Lightly promote ethics that literally keep our trails open. This means traveling responsibly only on designated paths, respecting all barriers, and never widening a trail just to get around a tough obstacle. If we destroy the vegetation just to bypass a muddy puddle, these trails get permanently closed down for everyone. If there's a rock in the trail, drive over it or back up. And of course, always pack out absolutely all of your trash. Proper risk management starts before you leave the house. You should really avoid off-roading alone if you can. Always use the buddy system and travel with at least one other vehicle. Check the weather forecast. A dry wash can turn into a raging river in just a matter of hours. Always tell someone back home your exact route and when to expect you back. And pack the essentials: a full-size spare tire, a proper off-road jack, a first aid kit, and offline maps. Cell service is a pretty rare luxury in the backcountry, so don't rely on it.
All right, let's wrap this up with our closing competency checklist.
Let's put the whole shebang together. Before you head out, verify your 4WD system, know your traction modes, and understand your clearance. Out on the trail, actively read the terrain. Pick calculated lines, control that wheel spin, manage your tire pressure, and always carry the right recovery gear. Checking off these mental boxes builds genuine confidence. It ensures you're making smart, calculated decisions rather than just relying on horsepower and blind luck.
I really want to leave you with this final thought. Good off-road driving is not about forcing the vehicle through every obstacle. It is about preserving traction, clearance, options, and a safe way home. True off-road mastery isn't some ego trip where you force your rig through every treacherous mudhole. It's about preserving your vehicle, keeping your options open, and making absolutely sure you get home safely. So I'll leave you with this question. On your next adventure, will you be out there trying to blindly conquer nature, or will you be out there proving you're smart enough to work alongside it?